Hi, Deacon John Wilson here, Education Enrichment Director for West Angeles Church. I was talking to a couple of educators at a private school here locally. I better not say who. And they're really concerned that if the Department of Education is reorganized or shut down and that all their functions will stop. I don't think that that's what the current administration has or the incoming administration has said. I'm trying to be fair here. I just don't like my parents being afraid. I mean, there's some things you might need to be afraid of in the future, but in the education area, I don't think there's much. There, in fact, I think there's a lot of things that may make you, surprisingly, parents, quite happy. Um, and then all this rhetoric around the world ending if we take away the Department of Education, I just don't understand. So I want to go over a few things here very quickly. Keep this short. Send you a link to get more information. Ironically, I'm going to use Wikipedia today, who I don't usually like to use, but they're very good with factual things. And it's when they have to do biographies of people and give opinions, I don't use Wikipedia at all. But when it's factual stuff, I check a couple of sources that I look at Wikipedia, and if it's a good summary, then I use them. So I use them here today. And I just want to go over the key functions of the Department of Education and where I think they can be moved to. Now, I'm going to do a little bit of history for you, not the total history, but just enough for you to understand where I'm coming from. So here's that Wikipedia article on the Department of Education. You just look it up, United States Department of Education, but I'll give you the link. And it says here it's a cabinet level department. Stop. That's what they're proposing to eliminate. Eliminate it as a cabinet level department. Um, and I haven't heard that cost is the reason. And there may be people that are saying that, but everything I read, and I read very carefully in these things, is saying that it's not really the cost. It's more so an issue with complexity and complication of government and the necessity of the administration of an entire cabinet department. And I guess the salaries of some of its top level people. You see, there was a time when the Department of Education functions were inside a department called Health, Education, and Welfare. Well, in 1979, Jimmy Carter signed into law the Department of Education Organization Act. So it's created by Congress. And so, in order to get rid of it, the other thing I want to tell parents and educators and everyone else is, parents, is that you're going to need a act of Congress to actually get rid of it. I mean, right now, the Republicans have a small advantage in the House, but I don't think all the Republicans would vote to get rid of the department. So I kind of even question why I'm even covering this, but because a lot of people are asking me about it and they're worried about it. They think it means financial aid will go away for college. I don't think there's any political expedience for that. Now, there's some improvements they need to make with financial aid, but that's separate from whether you're going to get rid of the department. And I may need to do something separate about that at some point. Well, anyway, just go through this article. The Department of Education, I have highlighted this here. The Department of Education is administered by the United States Secretary of Education. It has 4,400 employees, the smallest staff of cabinet agencies, and a budget of $238 billion. Wow, it's got the smallest staff, but it has a $238 billion budget, which is a substantial portion of the federal budget. Let's find out what that goes for. I mean, in 23, it was 274 billion. The 24 budget is supposed to be lower. I guess 23 still had pandemic stuff in it. Yeah, there it is. Um, it was 637 billion in 2022. So there was a lot of cutting in, not of programs, but cutting of functions. Because you'll find out in a moment that I'll go ahead and say it. Well, you'll find in a moment that its purposes and functions down here are pretty much done by the states. Let's read this first sentence. I'll get back to that budget and breakdown in a moment. Unlike the systems of many other countries, listen to this. The education of the United States, the education in the State Department, is organized at the sub-national level. It's not a national federal government function. Why is that? Because under the 10th Amendment, the federal government, Department of Education, are not involved in determining the educational standards, curricula, or of colleges or schools. They are not involved in that. That's the states and private organizations. I hope you're getting that. Now, whether your high school has good programs is in no way dependent on the federal government. It's all the state level. It's just like what I said earlier when I was talking to you all about the rules of something. What was it at the state level? Oh yeah, that Tennessee passed the transgender youth rule. The federal government can't do anything about it. Just like states deciding what the abortion rules will be. When can we understand the 10th Amendment, please? And stop depending on and thinking about the government needs to do everything. 10th Amendment divides us the powers and tells what the federal government, it says anything the federal government is not given the Constitution, the states have it. So the states control education in this country. Hope you understand that. I don't know. I really want you to know that. That's very important. So you take away the Department of Education, your school's not going away. And people will say that to you. And that's a lie when you hear it. It's either they're misinformed or don't understand. Here are the four key functions, and we'll go over that budget in a minute. You might wonder how they spend up 200 some billion with just 4,400 employees. Number one, it establishes policies on federal financial aid for education and distributing well as those monitoring those funds. And that's misleading. It's the federal financial, it does say federal financial aid. It does distribute the funds for federal aid. We're talking about Pell Grants and student loans. It just distributes it. It doesn't appropriate. Congress actually authorizes it every year and it comes out of the Treasury. So most of us think that the financial aid programs themselves should be administered out of the Treasury Department. Department of Treasury, and that will save money on the loans because it turns out administration of those loans is costing a lot of money. So let the Department of Treasury do it when all the loans are federal anyway. And that's another video, but sometime I need to tell you about how billions of the hundreds of billions of dollars are being wasted every year in the loan program. Default loans, poor management, inability to coordinate with students. It's just a mess. Okay. But they do establish the policies for financial aid. But that can be done in Health and Human Services, where it was originally. That's not a big part of its function, as you'll see in a minute. Collecting data on America's schools and disseminating it to who? We have large colleges like UCLA and some of the Ivy Leagues and others, Vanderbilt, Rice, that are doing their own studies of the schools in their states. The states do that within their states. What research do they need to disseminate? Focusing national attention on key issues. See, but what they focus attention on depends on who's president, right? And that becomes political, not education. I mean, if California wants to put in some special math or writing program or whatever, they can do that. It's not up to the federal government. Now, I don't see this here, but this is where we get into it. It should say this here. Grants, they send grants to state schools to do things in the schools, which you probably have heard. I think they do it to cities sometimes. But again, they can't tell you what to do with it. It's up to the school district what to do. And sometimes federal funds have strings attached that compromise the needs and desires of parents. Like this emphasis right now on teaching kids about abortion rights and, critical race theory and gender stuff. A lot of that is funded by, well, state certainly, but also some federal funds. A lot of people think the federal government shouldn't be doing that. But the daily delivery of the educational product, the heavy lifting comes out of your state capital. That's where it happens. Now, I would say they could still do grants, but let's just make them block grants with no strings attached, not telling them what to do. Perhaps those funds will be used for general things, but I don't even think that's necessary. But let's just say we keep that. Now, that doesn't have to be a separate department of government. I mean, the fact that the department is small tells you it's not needed as much as you think it's needed, not like the other departments. All right. So move that function back to HHS, Health and Human Services, when it was HEW. Prohibiting discrimination. That's the Department of Justice. That came up during those riots on the campus. And the Department of Education couldn't do anything when those kids were doing those anti-Jewish riots. It needed to be the Department of Justice. That's who did some things then, but not everything. But that was a policy decision by the administration because of the election. But that's not how they can prohibit all they want, but who's going to enforce it? These are federal laws. I think that can be done by Department of Justice. You don't need a separate department to do that. Okay? It's not going to be the end of it. Let's look at the budget and we'll close out. There's the budget. 33% of its budget is Pell Grants. Again, that can be administered by the Department of Treasury. Direct student loans, get this, $24 billion, 27%. Again, I'll send you a link to this. You can see these. Title I grants, these are the grants I talked about, 16.5%. Okay? But they should be block grants. Special ed, there's another $12.5 billion. Why can't they just be given to the states to use as they need? Stop trying to tell them what to do, because I don't think that's constitutional anyway, and it's been challenged. Then others just 7.92 billion. Just look at me talking. You can look at the history here of it and all that. I don't think that's that important. I just wanted to give you a sense not to be worried and concerned when people say they're going to get rid of the Federal Department of Education or and get rid of it. Doesn't mean your student's going to have any less, but people are going to say that. It's because the department goes away. I don't see Congress voting to take money away from school districts. I don't think Republicans will vote for that, but Republicans might vote for eliminating a branch of government that's not needed. All right, I hope I did that in a non-political way without giving too much of my opinion on any of it, actually. And I think that will help you. God bless you. Your comments are welcome. This is kind of an education policy thing. Your comments are welcome. Please contact me on that.